A pastor of a church stole millions of dollars according to the federal government. Let me take you to the NBC reporting.
His word is his will.
When the pandemic hit, Canadian Joshua Edwards asked the U.S. government to help his family's ministry stay afloat. He said they needed $6 million to keep paying more than 450 employees, according to court records, with the operation run out of this Florida office building. The government approved the PPP loan, even adding another $2 million, making it $8 million in total. But here's the problem. The only employees were the Edwards family, 4 of them. And Canadian records show the ministry's monthly income was just $5,500. The application was a total fabrication, signed off by an 88-year-old accountant in Canada suffering from dementia, as per court documents. Warren Smith is the president of Ministry Watch, an evangelical watchdog. So how didn't it flip a switch somewhere in the government when they saw this application?
Well, it should have. This would have been easy if you just did a couple of Google searches on this. The bank would have known that there was nothing there.
This money was supposed to go to businesses that were keeping people employed. And here you have this ministry taking advantage of that, allegedly.
Yeah. Well, this kind of fraud is just absolutely reprehensible because there was a limit to those funds.
Instead of funding a ministry set up to help the poor, the family put a down payment on this $3 million house in a gated community, blocks from Disney World. Within months, federal agents started asking questions.
Let's put up the picture of the pastor and his family. I'm going to highlight some dynamics that were not discussed in this interview with NBC, but should have been. You're looking at Evan Edwards and his wife, Mary Jane, flanked by their son, Josh, and daughter, Joy. You heard correctly when they said this was an operation based out of Canada. They had a Florida office, but it's based out of Canada. I need to propose something. Do you think if the company was, I don't know, based out of Mexico, they would have received the same favorable treatment? As a matter of fact, they applied for one sum of money. Hell, the government gave them more. Yeah, they said, you know what, guys, we're gonna actually give you a little bit more money than you wanted initially. Checks, balances, etc., not applied for this family or this operation out of Canada. Now remember, typically individuals who are approving these particular loans are doing so based on what? Paperwork. It was called a self-certification process, meaning you were able to certify if these elements were true about you. That did not stop other agencies you interacted with from doing a proper check of the record. This did not happen, ladies and gentlemen, with this particular operation. It also took money away from hard-working individuals who were trying to do the right thing because the money was made for who? For workers. If you were able to keep people working, you got an opportunity to take advantage of the allocation of money. That allocation was limited. There were many who could not get it, especially African-American owned companies, because the rules were created in a way that disenfranchised most African-American owned companies, something that the Biden administration addressed during the campaign trail and actually did change in the additional installment of money. So let's go down the rabbit hole. Florida, this is where it happened. A Florida pastor and his son were arrested on Wednesday on charges of fraudulently obtaining more than $8 million in federal COVID relief funds and attempting to use some of the money to buy a luxury home near Walt Disney World. $8 million is a lot of money, and that money was taken directly from taxpayers according to the allegation. Do you think Governor Ron DeSantis is going to hold a press conference about how this is an utter disgrace as it relates to your money? Of course not. Do you think that lawmakers are going to make a big deal out of churches at large stealing money from people? Do you think the preacher only stole money from the government, or do you think he's been stealing money from other people too? Just food for thought. Josh Edwards was taken into custody outside the Edwards family's new Smyrna Beach home. This happened December 14th, 2022. Mr. Edwards and his son, Josh, 30 years of age, were taken into custody 5 months after an NBC News report raised questions over why they had not been charged in the alleged scam, which federal prosecutors first identified in court papers in December 2020. It wasn't immediately clear if the family hired an attorney. So they didn't look into this until somebody actually did a story about it. And then things started to happen. Let me remind everyone, a PPP loan is a loan designed to provide a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers on payroll. First draw PPP loans can be used to help fund payroll costs, including benefits, and may also be used to pay for mortgage interest, rent, utilities, worker protection costs related to COVID-19, uninsured property damage costs caused by looting or vandalism during 2020, and certain supplier costs and expenses for operations. You could utilize the money for a wide array of things, but not for your personal benefit, not to simply buy a more expensive mansion. That is not what the money was for. And once again, it was a limited pot of money, which meant that 8 million was taken away from a company, a business owner, employees who needed it. We shall see how this continues to turn, but there's a reluctancy, especially from the right, to actually regulate in a significant way these operations known as churches. All right, my dear brother, what are your thoughts here?
You know, the PPP program is a good example of a government program with the best of intentions and just maybe one of the worst executions ever. We have seen fraud case after fraud case. They're still uncovering new instances of fraud. We just had a lawmaker here in Florida busted for a major fraud. He goes to trial in just a couple weeks for taking, hundreds of thousands of dollars from the program for businesses that didn't even exist. So this story is not surprising, but what is a little surprising, as you talked about, is the fact that it took so long for the prosecutors, for the police, for anybody to do anything real about it. We've known about it for 2 years. At one point, the family was actually pulled over for speeding, and in the vehicle, they found bags of shredded documents. They had all of their cell phones in one of those bags where you can't track them. Just reeked, absolutely reeked of something bad happening with these individuals. And yet, we gotta wait 2 years before we even make a move on them. When we have all the evidence, we see all this incredibly, suspicious behavior. I mean, that should have been enough for somebody to say, okay, we gotta do something, but no. And I think you're right. I think a lot of it has to do with, well, it's a ministry. Well, we don't want to get into that murky world of religion. We don't want people to think we're attacking a religion. This wasn't even a real organization.
Right.
It's not a real ministry, but they slapped that label on it because I think deep down they know that our government's probably not gonna look too deeply into that for fear of being accused of going after religion.
Right, and who knows what would have happened if the original reporting would have never been done. And that's why I always advocate, especially to my college students, you do not have any semblance of democracy without a free press. It doesn't exist. You cannot maintain it, nor can you have it.